Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream. Still figuring out a few bugs here and there, but format I think has been satisfactorily settled into. We'll be taking the next hour or two to receive requests and, of course, engage conversationally with any topics that those are affiliated with. I, of course, you can tell from the audio quality here, I'm trying to figure out the proper placement of the mic, but does seem to be working. Let me make sure. Listen in the live stream. Check. I guess I should watch it from a different angle here. Either that or the tape delay is just that far off. Okay, let's see. Audio doesn't seem to be coming through. Oh, there we go. Very good. Very good. All right, well, again, third live stream. Hopefully don't get carpal tunnel, although I think we've sailed to that ship. To take open requests. So I will be happy to receive requests as they come in, and note that these are all being sculpted live. So if there is any background lore to help pass the time, these take about 5 to 10 minutes each, depending on the level of detail. And any and all topics, characters, themes are welcome. The only standard is that the character in of itself is appropriate for all ages. Obviously, if they come from something that's, as the kids today say, sus, or as they used to say, inappropriate, if the character is still modest, I have no qualms about that. The goal is to minister to individuals, not to groups. So if you're worried like, oh, this won't get him a lot of subscribers, look at the channel. I've been doing this for so many years, multiple channels. I don't care about the number of subscribers. I want to make sure that individual people are getting to see the things that they love. So, since I guess has been the theme for the first two, we started with Disney princesses. There was a Princess Cinderella and then the Disney Castle the second time. Maybe we can default from that. My wife made the request early on to do Princess Daisy. So why don't we start there, and we'll see where the live stream takes us. And just a note for setting participation, I'll be keeping up the schizophrenic engagement. So for the sake of mental health, if you guys want to keep the conversation going, that will be as much a blessing for me in terms of engagement as it will be to keep me from going nuts. So, I guess you can't go where you already are, but that's another conversation to have. Let's start with Princess Daisy. Nintendo princesses. What was actually cute was at the after credits scene. Hopefully this isn't spoilers for anybody, but for the Super Mario Galaxy movie, only showed up in the DVD. We didn't notice it in theaters, but Daisy showed up in that one too, which of course bodes well for the sequels to come. And since first Mario movie, since that very bizarre one before the 2000s was very positive, very nice, very respectful to the fan base, apart from the accents, of course. Those were more nods made along the way. But nonetheless, the fact that they're telling decent stories and not getting involved in the sort of things that'll make things more difficult to watch, I do have great hopes, because whenever I do Mario Kart or anything, Smash Brothers and the like, I always want to do Daisy, since you gotta enjoy the tomboys, right? No, but set for me personally, I've never actually gotten into a lot of the Daisy lore, and apparently on the advent of that movie, they changed the lore for Princess Peach and Rosalina to actually be in line with what they came up with, which I think is cool. As long as it's not retconning or calling anything consistent that make things less fun for the audiences that be, the idea of Princess Daisy adding to those Stardust children and able to create more worlds, I think will be a very fascinating topic to address in the future. Same direction I think they're going with the Sonic movies. Granted, as we've seen with Hollywood all the time, they can miss the boat very quickly and ruin the one thing they have going for them. But as things stand, there is something to be hopeful about. So, working on her arms. Said anyone in the comments, I'm trying to remember in Super Smash Brothers. I know that Princess Peach, her side smash attack was the golf club in reference to Mario Party. And then Rosaline, obviously, she would toss the Luma. What was Daisy's side? Was that a golf club too? Or did they have something else unique for her, like a racquetball or something? I haven't played that game in so long. First time I had set the engagement is actually a funny story. So my wife is super competitive, right? She grew up as an only child, but being in a Hispanic family, she kind of filled that void with the multitude of cousins. And so when she would, be getting together with her cousins for gaming, they lived and died on the Super Mario Brothers trend. And she's like pro with Mario Kart, and she'll go up against the Japanese and Chinese players for fun, and I'm just intimidated for obvious reasons. But nonetheless, when she was a youngin', she would obviously enjoy the competitiveness, but had to learn manners when she lost, and I'm the beneficiary of that. So that when we had the chance to play Mario Kart, I mean, she just stomped me. It was, I won't make graphic comparisons, but let's just say that she came in first and I consistently did not. Nonetheless, when we were getting into that pattern and trend, she was starting to feel bad because it was just that one-sided. So she's like, well, do you have anything else you want to play? And I was like, well, what about Super Smash Brothers? That is the Mario characters in it, and she'd never played that before. So obviously the tables had turned, and I was starting to make her feel bad, and so we stopped. I haven't had the chance to play it since never had the reason or opportunity. My best friend in the whole world, his little brother, he was the resident professional as far as Super Smash Brothers, and even when teaching the junior hires back in the day, we had the Nintendo Wii, and we'd play Super Smash Brothers Brawl all the time, and obviously some characters were off limits like Meta Knight, but now some of the students, man, they showed that there are whole other levels to the kind of gameplay that people can produce. Really admire it, because you see excellence in your craft. Gotta give it the respect that's due, right? Same said here. I've been working at this for a long time, and they worked on their stuff for a long time, and actually deserve those props, You guys have any interesting multiplayer game experiences, or the sort of things in life that taught you the hard way that there is, in fact, a competitive scene and a casual scene? Oh yeah, the card games. That's, oh my goodness. Yeah, there's playing things like Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic the Gathering, and then there's going to a tournament, and it's almost borderline not fun at that point. They make you an example, as Dracula Flo would say. Don't look that up, by the way, if you don't know what it is. But if you do know, you can laugh with me, because it was funny. Still, yeah, Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh. Pokemon, I've heard, is kind of been fluctuating in the competitive scene. I know that there was that controversy with them introducing a ban list, but apparently the things that people were doing with those cards warranted it. I think it was, let's see, there was the Ninja Boy trainer card that allowed you to switch with another character entirely and retain all their energies. And even if you don't play the game, I'm sure you can see how swapping from something simple like a Joltik or a Caterpie and then bringing out some EX or level V monster all ready to go would ruin someone's trip, depending on how far they came for the tournament. But then there's that other one, and I only heard about it casually through a phone report. I think it was Metacham had a move that basically allowed you to take an extra turn, and that ended up on the ban list as well. Again, if any of you guys are aware of this or not, feel free to tune it out or introduce another topic, but I do simultaneously get discouraged and enjoy the ever-changing tides of the competitive scene just as much as I do the casual. But as you may imagine, I'm pretty touch and go with most of these things. All the creativity that you guys give me is the reason why I can cover such a broad swath of topics. And I appreciate that. Because believe me, I wouldn't know almost 90% of the things that are uploaded on here if it wasn't for putting myself out there and giving all of you guys the chance to give the channel its content and me the opportunity to produce it. So thank you for that. Continuing on. So yeah, Mario Kart, the Mario Nintendo franchise, it seems to be heading good directions, not just for the fans, but for newcomers. And accessibility is nice, not just in terms of gatekeeping bad. There may in fact be reasons you don't want people in certain fan bases, but getting the chance to enjoy things, that's the goal. That's the intent. More fun is better than less. And if, of course, the participation of some groups automatically, by nature, makes things less fun, well, then that goes back to the gatekeeping issue. Gatekeeping and all these things. I never cease to be amused by the terms the internet comes up with for all of these unique, casually explainable phrases. And granted, I do kind of get annoyed by some of the internet slang, and usually takes a learning curve to get used to some of them, but there are things that just become funny. All in execution, essence of comedy. Not just the absurdity of it, not just the on-point observation, but where and when and how it is all brought up. There we go. I've asked in live streams before, but I never got an answer. I'm curious about the kind of Disney princess hoop style dress. I do know that they used whale ribs to kind of extend them out like this, but was it a French thing that made the dresses like this, or is that just one other artistic venture that they borrowed from someone else? Because, I mean, for goodness sake, the French culture is just Italy rebranded when you get down to it. All right, let's see about set posture. Photo I got of hers, got her taking her power pose. I think maybe the ruffles on the shoulder could use a little bit more depth too. And set for finishing this one, another question for participation's sake. Anyone, and this is applicable for the post-live stream viewers as well, but anyone have recommendations as far as when these live streams would be more preferred? Because, well, I don't mind low attendance. The main goal for this is just to make a dent in the backlog, so to speak. But I am curious as if there are people who are wanting to join, if they would be more able to join on other days of the week and what times would be more applicable, because I determined these times based off of the analytics of the foil videos when people tended to watch them the most. So if this is something that you guys enjoy participating in, but another time would be more accessible to you, let me know and I'll be happy to bring those things all into consideration. Obviously, just like previous polls before, I want to hear what you guys want, but at the end of the day, I can only do what I can do. So that will be the balancing act, but I still want to hear the input. I always want to learn something. All right. Can't have princess without her crown. Make sure that those actual daisy earrings are at least visible despite being set on the backdrop, and work on the outward fluff of her hair. Here we go. Princess Daisy. See if I can get the light set to her crown there. The light is coming in from this angle, so it will be much easier to get those things out. I think the arms are too big. She's a tomboy. She's got to have the big arms. No, I appreciate the clarification. Get that taken care of. Very nice. Very nice. All right. So, Princess Daisy to start us off. Very nice. All right. So, we'll start with that on our repertoire, and I'll leave the chat open for a second. What else would you guys like to see made? Got to start with the princess, and I got a feeling we'll probably get a Pokemon request, an anime request, and then something that will be very intricate and detailed. So we'll see if we can fulfill that bingo chart as things go on. Oh my. So let's see here. What do we have? It's a fun one. Let me look that up. That is the Roaring Night Deltarune. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Roaring Night. Easy set for silhouettes, because that's kind of where the essence of the detail on these comes in. Deltarune. Not too familiar. Definitely make a lot of requests for it, though. Pixel art, and of course, that's where the most creativity seems to be in the majority of games right now. The developers become activists or alienate their audiences to the point where they lose their purpose. Just making something fun. Why is that so hard? Professionalism, folks. Professionalism. That's I won't get political. No, I try not to get political. The purpose of this channel isn't necessarily to share my ideas, it's to share my gifts. If I want to become an ideologue, then I can obviously make other channels independent of this one, but that obviously will engage people on a different level. This is just meant to be casual and friendly. Art is appreciated by its fans, and fans will come from any and all stripes. So I do myself no favors by alienating half or more of my audience engaging in those things. That's, I think, a fair mindset and mentality to have. Just know your lane and stick to it. If you build your audience on a political engagement or controversy, then power to you insofar as the nobility therein. But most of the time I see people just going the edgelord route and just trying to be jerks for jerks' own sake. So, just not my cup of tea. That's all I'm saying. I'm going to turn this foil channel into an activist one, then I have nothing to gain from that except an audience that probably doesn't care about the foil and just looking for affirmations in some unrelated topic anyway. And those that would just come to the foil would have a high likelihood of not appreciating having to deal with something when, of course, they're just there for this. So thus, this I will continue to do and stick to it. And if you guys don't think that's fair and you want the messaging and ideas and themes, then by all means, there's plenty of artists that incorporate those things, but those would be more in terms of storytellers. This is just individual sculptures, you know. It would make a lot of sense to me to say that that's the purpose this has to fulfill. Not philosophical. Okay. Oh, I just made it in a silly voice. Set philosophies is what I said. By the way, if I haven't mentioned it before, but I'm normally a very quiet and reserved person, but since I don't have the means or ability to play music over these live streams like I do with the videos and be able to mute it and having to deal with the conflicting audio and stuff, I figured it would be best to just keep it conversational, and seems to be a format that's engaging for most people. Creates kind of a friendly connection and environment, and gives you guys the chance to know that I care about you, I appreciate it. I want to have that kind of engagement with you. Set in the internet culture, certainly a need for it. But the goal here is to alienate the least and compromise. I'm focusing on that. Anyway, I was saying, you don't know something about me if I use big or complicated words. I'm not trying to be smart. I just do that kind of as a placeholder when I'm nervous, so that it kind of neutralizes the environment. Let me know if you guys got that. So here is the Roaring Night. The angles are right on that. Roaring Night from Deltarune. All right. Welcome, Confused CNC. Appreciate you joining us on the live stream. Open request here. So far, we've done Princess Daisy from Mario's Extended Universe. And as you just saw, the Roaring Night from Deltarune. Is there anything specific you would like to see made, set, and engaged? Otherwise, I got a nice lineup here that will take us through the time. And feel free to engage in the chat box about any topics. I love learning things about the stuff you guys enjoy. While you are thinking about it, I will see what I got here on my backlog. Let's see if this will maximize. Murrit Turkin from Vast Error. And I want to stress that because I've talked to fans of Homestuck and Vast Error, thought that they were interchangeable. They were very firm about the fact that there's a major difference. So anyway, Murrit Turkin, I'll do the troll form. That will be very easy. Okay. The most things that stand out with these characters are the horns anyway. But this guy's got webbed ears and sunglasses. At least I think those are sunglasses. I don't know. Maybe they got a unique term when the sunglasses have those on them. Still, do enjoy the engagement with the Homestuck community because A, they're very passionate about the series, and B, sculptures are not difficult. Except in troll form. I would not mind at all if you guys wanted to send me fan art and get that made more specifically to your liking. Also funny about the looks like he has a kind of a Hawaiian shirt on, and the professional company that I keep at my real life job, that's basically the work uniform there too. So I find it fun. Seems a little messy, so we'll do an overlap there. And now for the major detail, the troll head. Webtoons and webcomics. Before the days of VTubers, AI, and all that jazz, I really commend people for sticking through the difficulty of getting your content put out there and exerting the kind of effort to tell a meaningful story. A lot of people seem to be engaged with it. I'm personally not, again, on the internet enough to want to see it through, but I have two friends in real life that are big Homestuck fans, and I also have several students that were ecstatic when I tell them that I got a request from this franchise that week. So. Oh boy. Things that draw us together are much fun, much more fun than what drive us apart. To emphasize for that. Man, for these troll concepts really makes me wonder the relevance to the story. The opportunity, Homestuck fans, you can literally talk through the whole live stream, dominate the market by only having us do Homestuck characters. Watch me through the story as I have the opportunity here. Like he has a messy hairdo. At least for his bangs. And here I am discussing the hairdo style of a troll. Not that troll. Anyway, I know you guys are polite and friendly. Although, I mentioned this before in a previous live stream, but I've done 2 different Foil Guy channels before this. I ended up getting run out of town through mass flagging campaigns, harassment, all the kind of unpleasantness that the internet's anonymity tends to cultivate, at least in the early 2000s when YouTube was still young and edgelords kind of dominated the scene. But yeah, the negative comments seem like more than anything else. They're not really engaged with the topic. There's been some malicious, but they seem to be getting attention back again, and I hope that's not the case because, goodness sake, just trying to be nice here. All right. So that is Murrit Turkin from Vast Air, set in troll form. How you guys doing? Requests all welcomed and celebrated as long as they meet the criteria, which is the sculpture in of itself is appropriate for all ages. Excuse me. Let's see here. Jareth? Oh, the guy from the Labyrinth, right? Let me see if I can get a picture of him. I haven't seen that so long. All I really remember was his hairdo. Although that may have been the point. Jareth the Goblin King. And he's got a big back hood. All right. Yeah. Yeah, I can do that. That looks fun. See if I can make this hairstyle stand out. Oh, okay. Jareth the Goblin King. I was thinking, but I'm like, it's like, good heavens, I wonder, like, there's people who have to take hours to get into makeup with all the Marvel heroes and stuff. I was just wondering how many cans of hairspray did they have to do to get his hair to stand like that. When I got married, my wife had this hairstyle where things were just kind of pooped out a little bit, but it took like 100+ hairpins for her to look like that. And so I'm just really traumatized, but I just empathize with the things people go through to get their hair right. What do I know? My preferred hairstyle is just whatever's going to make it most efficient to get out the door. I won't style it in any way. In fact, I have an ongoing strategy for not just money saving, but for overall efficiency in life because of the lack of care or attention I give to my hair. I just kind of neglect it. Obviously, not to the point where it borders on unprofessional, but just kind of let it go, do a more natural state. And then if family members or an event's coming up and they want me to go to a barber shop or something, I'm, just not interested, right? And here's the strategy. So it just grows longer and it's more casual and all that kind of stuff. And they really want me to look nice. And so I'm like, yeah, I just don't really care. And so they say, look, I will pay for you to go to the barber. And they say, oh, okay. That's the genius of it. Hey, I didn't want to, and something gets done without need of cost or investment to me. By the way, no prejudice or dismissal for those that do pay a lot of attention to their hair. I'm just not that type of personality. Admire the strategy, if you will, or not. I know I'm a silly person. Let's see. What is he looking at? My reference is the one with the cape, since that tends to look a lot better on the foil side of things. It's also the one where he looks like the pirate, and the other one where he's got his full vampire hood thing. I'm gonna stick to the former. Very freely. You guys seen Labyrinth recently? No, it was a underappreciated classic in its time, but haven't heard a lot from it. No, remastered, 25th anniversaries or anything like that. So there's a massive underground following. Love to engage with them, see what they think about the story and characters. Let's see here. Working on the fingers. Which is the third hardest part of any humanoid figure, as you may imagine. It's also funny, too, when they're mid-project and you're borderline horrified at some of the positions and shapes they take. It's just like, oh, no, that must hurt. I want them to look like we're trying to get information out of them. Which, by the way, for those of you who are considering prolonged torture in order to acquire information, is a very inefficient method because most people are just willing to confess to get the pain to stop rather than to assure the accuracy of information. It's speed over sincerity at the end of the day. Lessons you learned on YouTube live stream. The inefficiency. Medieval and draconian torture methods. Although I guess they predate that. I feel bad for the term draconian to be the centerpiece of being unjust. The Romanian borders were going through a lot of stuff that required martial law to be enforced very strictly. When you're under that kind of military threat, it doesn't make civilian life any better. It just makes it more wise to avoid those kinds of living situations in the first place. Oh, dear. So much really. And I do admire the people who are doing these PVC sculptures and everything else that give me these kind of references. I wouldn't want to have to watch the movie and pause it at different angles. There was a story I read about this girl that before the time of the internet, the first Star Wars movie, she designed a costume from scratch, and she obviously couldn't take photographs in the movie theater or anything, so she just kind of had to take note, seeing the movie multiple times, and made her own costume. I'm like, man, one artist to those in history. Gotta respect the dedication to the craft there. Do a lot of Halloween costumes, but began to be discouraging when learning the hard way, either these only lasting for one day or the politics involved. People and the judges board were more interested in hitting quotas or appealing to certain people, or the costumes appealing to not so favorable audiences. I got depressed by that. Still, might be a time, and I'm still looking into this. I mentioned this the last stream as well, but looking for some kind of spray or adhesive that would harden the stuff and make it more able to withstand the annals of time. Any of you guys know stuff in that department, I will be happy to take suggestions, but know as well that I've been trying for a while. We've done things like polyurethane, like solution, quick drying resin, epoxy. Got this stuff that they use as kind of a foundation for refrigerators and other appliances. done the whole 9 yards, folks. So, any assistance, much like with the sculptures themselves, getting lots of comments be appreciated. And the segues that we go to from me just hesitating to laugh out loud regarding the hairstyle of this guy. Oh, the journeys that an ADD vacation continues on. I mean, brownie points to the person who knows who I'm referencing there. That know what you mean. It had been before most of your time. It was a commercial series. Made a few movies off the character too. That's how influential and funny it was. Working on the 2 hanging strands of his hair. Is there any requests while we're going? Yeah, we'll finish with the cape. And hopefully, all those Labyrinth fans out there will be elated to see what I can only assume is their favorite character. I don't know enough about Labyrinth to know the others. In other words, that weird guy with the eyes on his hands, but then that may have been another movie. Yeah, Pan's Labyrinth. I don't know. As the Beatles sang, been searching for a heart of gold, and we're getting old. Can't keep up with you crazy kids. All your newfangled movies. So it's another curious thing about being the Goblin King. Look those up and you get things like him, and then you look it up elsewhere and you get things like The Hobbit. That is a contrast. And with the common theme of Dungeons and Dragons making goblins out to be the green skin guys set in the anime, I wouldn't know heads or tails if I got into the goblin genre of where to start. Even in goblin mode. There's another slang term, I guess. But yeah, no. Any amusing or formative fantasy movies you guys watched? Obviously, Disney's a staple for most in the West, but I would love to hear obscure, extended, foreign stuff. But despite the broader nature outside of my homeland, is still good, because such a thing is possible. Just gotta catch the cultural themes. Always found the emphasis that a lot of Eastern films are is either emphasizing or overemphasizing, I should say, drama or saving face for issues in a culture. That's the positives and negatives. If you want to save face in Eastern culture and want to tell me that's not the case, then sorry, you're kind of proving the point. But, don't worry, Kate will fix that. Improvisation is a parlor trick. Anyone can do it. Yeah, but no. Always interested in hearing about the things people enjoy and the reasons why. The reasons are simple. Might expose more interested minds to point out those things. That's what makes fan bases fun. There's more than one brain within them. Yeah, I know. There's obviously the weirdos in it too, but that's also a good thing as to why you want more than one brain. You're only left with the weirdos, and you got a weird fan base. If you have weirdos, then you're just, public. But if you got nice people making the prominent case, then even the presence of weirdos. Otherwise, Shrek would have gone at the wayside a long time ago. Okay. How does that look? Jareth, the Goblin King. All right. Oh. The Bluegrass Hatter. The first thing I ever made with foil was a hat. Now, professional hat maker. Professional in the context of making it with foil, or are you upgrading to things like leather and other fabrics? Because that would be hilarious if you started with this and then moved on to more professional needs. I've gotten a few requests for types of hats, fedoras, bowlers, sun hats, that kind of deal. We happy to take those requests if that's what you guys would like to see made. A lot of tools in the 1800s used to run a store. Well, good for you. Good for you. I'm glad that you're engaged in your craft. Again, full marks and respect when I see other artists in their element. I see the stuff people are doing with digital stuff. I mean, good heavens, the shading work, the highlights, the attention to detail, and knowing how those affect work, it blows my mind. And so, for your craft to be able to put those things together, know how those materials work, by all means, everyone at Tips and Hats for you. Do hit me up. Well, I'm hitting you up right now, man. What would you, what would you recommend as far as foil hat techniques and the internal structure, and B, just as far as like smaller designs and stuff, which ones do you think would look the best silhouetted? Because obviously my stuff, I have more of the details and the wrinkles. There are people who do it a lot smoother. There's this guy in Japan that just blows my mind. But no, by all means, lay it on me. You have a request for a hat being made and have recommendations along the way. Forms make a big difference. You can properly size it. Well, yeah, I guess that is the defining detail. Does the hat fit? See if I have any. Yeah, cowboy hat, boater hat, derby hat. Yeah, I've got a few. I mean, layers upon layers for irony. Usually, the tinfoil hat thing is just wrap around someone's head and call it a day. Where we did a overnight event with our junior hires here, and I made them all tinfoil hats and did something a little bit more intricate and unique for the decorations on top of it, like a butterfly or a axe or a sword or a torch and that kind of stuff. But we were discussing conspiracy theories and how to basically recognize the problems with that and how to test them. Because obviously, just because you say it's a conspiracy theory doesn't mean it's false. But at the same time, conspiracies are based on an absence of evidence and having to associate that with an organized group, which is very hard to prove, which is the whole problem. So, anyway, that's the last time I was making tinfoil hats en masse, and I was just able to each and every individual scale. My tech class in high school had a yearly competition for those who can make the best aluminum foil deflector beanie. That's where I made my first hat. That is the best name I have ever heard for such a thing in my entire life, and I will give you full credit for that if I ever use it in polite conversation. Thank you for bringing that into my mind. I love it. AFTB. All right, so set for next request. You guys don't have any requests specifically. Go to my backlog here. Someone was asking for a necklace that was done by Alex Moss, the updated one anyway. Prince of Darkness. Is that something you guys want to see next, or specifically from Bluegrass Hatter? Do you like it to be? You're here for the technical terms. All for it, Bluegrass Hatter. Thank you for enlightening me. So let's do that necklace, and then if you guys have further requests, I'll be happy to fulfill them. Prince of Darkness. Morbid, but sculpture of itself is just. Start with the chains first, and we'll see where we go from there. As a hatter, so what other technical terms are there for hat making? Are there specific terms for like the cages and comforts on the inside? Is there a technical term for, how far out the coverage goes to make it more of an outdoorsy hat and a hiking hat as opposed to something that's more intended to look good for fashion? As a hatter, do you have to stay up to date with the trends or anything? I am curious because that is not my world. I think the last time got a hat was just for hiking. Just a gray and green one for me and the missus. It did help because it also fitted on bicycle rides. Very comfy. I guess that's another balance too. Is there a kind of material, Bluegrass Hatter, regarding the nature of the hat? What kind of material tends to sell the best is the most comfortable? Because I'd imagine leather would probably look good, but it would also be sweaty. Doesn't breathe very well. So I don't know. Do you just make the hats and not sell them? Are these questions beyond the technical? Your raw material is called a capeline. Point between the brim and the crown is called the break line. Pounce is the process of sanding the felt down smooth. Oh, do I have to write this down? Will there be a test? I didn't study. Man, now listen to this, folks. This is the stuff that I live for. You just see a lot of amazing people with all these unique talents and perspectives, and being able to learn from so many people that found out what worked, and just the sort of things we take for granted. You see a hat, you buy a hat, and you don't realize the work that goes into all these things. The same thing with like metal work and everything else. There's a machine I use called a conformateur. That's French. Measures the exact shape of your head from the 1800s. Yeah. Things that have been innovated from this time, yet we still can't deny that the oldies are also sometimes goodies. My first job was actually at a metalworking woodworking shop, unrelated, and it was called Quality First, and it was working on therapy tools and stuff for people that were recovering in hospitals, trying to get their motor functions and stuff. And my boss basically started his business because he, as a metal and woodworker, was, just working on whatever the company wanted him to. They went out of business and were selling all of their tools at, like, a super discounted price, and so he bought it all up and started making a living reaching out to people he knew who needed help in those departments. But I'm curious for you, to have, like, all the machines from the 1800s and stuff. How did you acquire them? Were they things that were just already accessible? Did you find them on a string of luck, or where'd you get the ancient artifacts? Here, just for the sake of those who are all here to learn, learning about hat engineering in a foil live. So we've got the aluminum foil deflector beanie, or the ATB. Raw material is called a capeline. Point between the brim and the crown is called a break line. The pouncing is the process of sand out down smooth. Got it. Then, noting the tools from the 800s, the conformateur. That's what we're looking for. Borrowed a lot of my tools from a couple of master hatters that were retiring. A lot of antique dealers as well. Yeah, that makes sense. Never shake a stick at used. That only means that it worked. Good on you for keeping that flame going. Always a fan. Seeing people investing fully in their craft. What else can you tell us? This is fun. Formateur. That come out of France, or is that just a unfortunate coincidence? Oh, and only other thing I know, Patty, very nice. The only other thing I know about the old ways is kind of the inspiration from Alice in Wonderland. Someone who was mad as a hatter was because they would be using dangerous chemicals to cure a lot of the material. And so the constant exposure to lead, all that other stuff, resulted in the later stages of life battling their minds. The local hatters, if they were old and retired masters, that would also assume they were a little, well, as someone who's functionally talking to himself in the middle of his office. Not a condemnation for me to say loopy, but still, mad as a hatter came from that term. I assume, yeah, mercury exposure. I assume that is not a problem anymore. In Danbury, Connecticut, there was such a large hatting industry that they called the symptoms of mercury poisoning the Danbury Shakes. Sounds like a dance craze. I love it. The high school mascot was the Mad Hatter. Oh man. Let no one say that you didn't have your calling spelled out for you, man. You seem like you've been raised knee high to a grasshopper to bless all of us with your talent and technicality. More power to you. More power to you. I'm glad that you got a good upbringing, that you get kind of access to these sort of things, and you're able to educate all of us, give us appreciation for the things that you work hard to produce for us. It's fantastic. Still, Danbury, Connecticut. I'm gonna look that up afterwards. Think, like, whenever they score a goal, they just start spasming like lunatics, or do you think that was dark humor? The Danbury sh there was also, not to the subject of more adding, see, it wasn't until the late 1930s when they signed into law banning mercury from hat making, not from thermometers, by the way, you can still stick those in your mouth. They have to take special precautions for storing any hats from 1937. Yeah, I'd imagine. It's the same kinda thing that I was mentioning with lead, they put that in paints, so when you're, like, buffing out old sheds and stuff, and you get down to a certain level, you have to wear certain protective gear, lest you breathe in those sort of stuff. I was part of a few restoration projects, and they were very strict about that. Make sure that you're not taking your mask off, make sure that everything's being cleaned up properly, and man, take for granted the things that we end up learning the hard way, you know? Same thing with the color green from the Victor. Oh, yeah. The same thing. This is bluegrass header. Oh, same thing with the color green from the Victorian era, since they used arsenic for that pigment. I don't remember the name of the channel, but um, there's a few really good YouTube videos that went into detail about just like the horrifying, horrifying long-term effects and consequences of that sort of thing. That when they wanted that kind of pigment and they were cutting corners, or even then they just didn't know that it was a problem until it was too late. The same thing for radon and everything else, putting that into cosmetic. We take for granted things that just they didn't know. They couldn't have been expected to know. Arsenic in paint. You say like, "Oh, that's common sense today." No, people had to die for that to become common knowledge. That is sad. Those of you who are wondering, why is he watching stuff about like the morbid facts? All those things. I have no answer. I just know. Filling my head with all sorts of stuff, whether it's awesome things like the intricacies and technicalities of hat making, or the morbidity of paint toxicity throughout the years. This is even just going into the 60s. At least the 1930s, they figured out mercury wasn't good for you. But even then, my dad in the 50s was playing with the mercury that was inside of thermometers, and unfortunately, he's still alive. The chemical compounds they would spray on the crops as the kids were playing with it and stuff. His observation today is he doesn't know how any of them survived. They want me to make everyone paranoid and uncomfortable. Makes you wonder what the stuff they're doing today end up being the living regrets for common knowledge in the years to come. Common sense to avoid those things. It wasn't for us. I feel like if we were born in the Victorian era, I would have died from exposure to anything from lead to arsenic to radium. Probably fall so be radium as a medicine. Well, if he was a snake oil salesman and you have a snake that's producing radium, that would actually be incredible. I would, I would love to see a snake that's radioactive. Maybe I'd get superpowers. It'd get me. Musician Frank Zappa used to just play with mercury growing up as a kid. One more thing my father has in common with him. Is he still around? Frank Zappa? I'm sitting hoping, but it would definitely belabor the point. Dad used to play with us best. Oh man, best Asbestos. Everyone here know what that is? That is what they would essentially put in anything and everything to insulate heat. And unlike the drywall that we appreciate today, that is another level toxic because it's not only carcinogenic, meaning that it causes cancer, but the way that it does it is because it breaks down into such a microscopic level of evil that when you breathe in the shards, they will never get out of your body. It is stuff that makes microplastics look like, Play-Doh. Asbestos and cigarette filters to make a healthier alternative. Yeah, there was a time where cigarettes were healthy too. Oh my goodness. Zappa died years ago. Pour one out for him. Another thing, I'm not clued in on the music scene at all. I see the stuff that I use for the background music on my channel is mainly from video games that companies either went out of business or were generous enough to make them free use in the brighter names. I can tell you. That's why I want to learn. These kind of conversations didn't. But who knows? I may end up getting more out of the time spent with you guys than you do. Teach me. I desire to learn. Or what was it? Lion King 1.5 with Pumbaa. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. Yes, I have been hanging around with the monkey. All right, there's the Prince of Darkness necklace. Courtesy of the second edition from Alex Moss, a musician whom I have no affiliation. It'd be fun if he saw this and he's like, "Hey, that's cool." All right, so quick recap. So far, we've got Princess Daisy from Super Mario group. We've got the Roaring Knight from Deltarune. We've got Homestuck Troll. Not Homestuck, Vast Air. Talked about that. We've got the Goblin King from Labyrinth. And what you just saw, the Prince of Darkness necklace. Inspired me. My next hat might be another foil hat. I am honored to be an inspiration. Any requests and inspiration for me? I think we got another 45 minutes before I need to log off. Let's see here. How about anime a little bit, unless you guys have a specific request. Do a top hat? Yeah, I'd love to. Reference for that? I refuse to admit what I just typed. There we go. All right, top hat. Well, let's go through what we. So, starting with the cap line of VR foil, I will start using my hand as the conformateur. Add another layer. To create what is functionally a can of soup. By the way, not to get too segue with everything, always found it amusing when meme channels reduce the nature of so many things down to soup. The ocean is soup. Our bodies are soup. We are a mass of meat, vegetables, and water, generally and assumingly best served warm. Soups. Now for the brown. Hello, the kid down under. Thank you for joining us. Requests are free, open, and available. We're taking requests live and chatting about the nature of them. So feel free. Oh, redacted his message. Hopefully, I didn't release any private information by acknowledging his greeting. Down under. Are you from Australia? Help me do an Among Us with foil. I have to do it at school. I would love to. I'll be happy to talk you through it as well so that you can follow along. And I will take my time to make sure that no details are missed. Right now, I'm doing a top hat for Bluegrass Hatter here, who is, by the way, if you don't mind me saying, a hatter in real life. All right, now for a little band. For what purpose, I'm sure this gentleman will inform us. You do own property, right? That's the definition of a gentleman. How's that for a top hat? Good. The ribbon tends to hide the stitching for the sweatband. Thank you. And gorgeous work. That means a lot coming from you. Thank you very much. All right. So, and Among Us. I assume just the astronaut and not the imposter animations. Except for no for that. So, yeah, I'll walk you through this. So, my style, and obviously there's more than one way to go about this, is to, of course, make full use of as little foil as possible to the greatest effect. If you need to use more, then obviously this is going to be wrapping it and wrapping it and wrapping it again. Just like if you were, again, to give something more mass and you could smooth it out like clay, foil will work the same way after a certain point, but it will get tougher. So if you are really careful and you really kind of tend to the details of what you're doing, then of course you're going to have an easier and cheaper time. So for what we're going for in the Among Us astronaut, we have three basic features. We've got the body, which of course is just two legs and a mound. We've got the visor, which we'll have to attach afterwards. And then the backpack, which we have the option of attaching afterwards, or we can make as part of the whole thing. So feel free, Bluegrass Hatter. Thank you for including me in the stimulating conversation. Cheers, Kentucky. Cheers from Arizona. Thank you again so much for joining us. So for the Among Us, the astronaut crewmate effect. It's going to have the two legs and the body. It's going to have the backpack. It's going to have the visor. So let's work with these in pieces, and then I'll show you how to attach them. Starting with, again, the body. You can take a piece of foil that's in your hand, or you can take more. It's going to depend on what your school's requiring from you, but I'll try to do it as small as possible for the sake of my resources. So I'm going to take just a little one by one cube here. And in this square, I'm going to essentially label the outline. And my intention is not to finish the whole thing in one go. Good, but I want to keep this easy for you. I just want to make the 2 legs and the body. So with that in mind, let's just start with the legs. Tearing this section off, but stopping right here, I have an idea of what I'm going to do with the foil and essentially already have the outline of the body and the legs. Now, with foil, this is a two-dimensional shape, right? It's flat. What we want is a three-dimensional shape, something that's thick. So the way that you do that is by not crushing it flat, because that would just make another two-dimensional shape. What you want to do is be able to squeeze, but only to a certain point. So since we want these legs to basically just be 2 cylinders without removing it from the rest of the body, just reach around the whole section that you tear it off for the legs and squeeze it, but not crush it, so that it looks like that. So you see this is 3-dimensional, not 2-dimensional. Same thing for the other leg. Squeeze without crushing. Now we're getting a little bit more of a system here. I got from a kid down under. If you leave the foil, you can see a face on the foil. I think that's my face, or not. I'll let this sit out there for a little longer. Anyway, so you're following along. Obviously, we don't want the feet to look like this. We want them to look cylindrical, but also flat end so that he can stand up. So what you're going to do is take these in your hand without, again, crushing them, just meeting your hands around that area, using your thumb here or separately, just to press down on it while keeping the rest firm. And you can, of course, work on the edges in a way I'll show you more how to do in a second. But all you need to do is, with that shape, flatten that edge, and now you've got a leg. Same thing for the other side. Reach around, grab, pinch, 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 press, press, press. You've got 2 legs. Now, this is where then we use the same principle. We want this all to be essentially the shape of a bullet. So what we're going to do is, just like with the legs, reach around it, not crush it, just reach around and grasp it while stopping at a certain point so that it, again, looks now like maybe a minion that's been run over. I don't know. But question here, have you ever done it with wire and then foil and then plastine? I've not done it with plasticine. I have done it with wire structures before. However, I prefer to do it just with the foil on its own because that's easier to carry in my pocket and do for people on the fly. But stuff like paper mache and all that stuff, that was limited to when I had access to those resources and the excuse to make it. I just stick to pure foil for the most part. So I hope that answers your question. Now, this seems a little large, so what I'm going to do is bring it down to size. And instead of tearing it off, making this a little bit thicker, I'm going to fold it over. I'm going to use my thumb as kind of a lich pin that it's going to mold around, and I'll accomplish 2 things at once. I'll make the round dome for the head, and at the same time, the thickness and shape of the body. Now, can see the hollowness there. Maybe that's a sign they're an imposter. I don't know. Before we get into that and wrapping around it for details, I want to show you how to do something else. First, just have that willingness to smooth it out a little bit. But you see this bottom end, that doesn't look quite like the crewmate from Among Us. So how are we going to make that flat? And I can try to do that with my thumb, but it's just going to stick out and maybe come undone. What I want to show you is pinching. Now, pinching is very good with aluminum foil because you can work in details all around here. You wouldn't have to use your thumb. You can pinch in on the sides. Well, the same thing here. If there's loose stragglers or ends or details that are distracting from what you're trying to accomplish, you can pinch in those details and make a bottom end like that. Now, pushing these 2 back to where they want, and then again, pinching around little places where we want them to go. Just moving them into place as rough as possible, and then pinching to restore those details. Now we're starting to get in the Among Us department. So Now from here, we need 2 more features. We need the backpack and we need the visor. So there, what we're essentially just gonna do is take another smaller piece, wrap that up, and crush it, but into more of an oval shape. That, again, is easy. You can just see that right there. We've basically got the Among Us already. Same thing for the backpack, but flatten it with the edge of your thumbs, just like I showed you at the bottom of the legs, using your fingers to cup under it so that it fits the shape conically like that. Same thing for the backpack. Just crush something three-dimensional into some sort of breathing apparatus. You're good. Just roll it up however you like. Now, how are we going to attach these two to that? Well, this is what we would call layering. You see me do it with the sculptures all the time. Like, say, for example, with this Daisy princess dress, you have one over the other. Well, I just wrap around it again and again. Same thing for muscle structure, same thing for her face. I just add one more layer. Obviously, for something this size, don't need a lot. So eyeballing it, the length of my thumb, just get nice long piece there and plan on wrapping it around. But before I do that, I want to put each piece where I want it. Maybe pressing it in a little bit so that it sits and holding on to them. I now have the Among Us, but I don't have any glue. They're just going to fall off. So what I'm going to do, what I encourage you to do, is if you're not as experienced as I am with pinching in those details, that's another thing that you could do. Or when sculpting these, maybe including a band you can then wrap around later, pinch into place. I'm just going to show you the easy route. Laziness is always fun. So wrap around the sculpture as gently as possible so that every little detail is wrapped around but not crushed. So in this state, we now then do what we saw earlier with pinch. Pinch these details down around the sides, pinch these details in around the dome, and of course, start pinching the details around the visor and the backpack. See what I'm doing here? So that they now are all one piece. That is how we do a crewmate. Obviously, you can use your fingernails or maybe use a pencil afterwards to kind of trace the lines so that the visor stands out more. We can draw attention to the backpack by pinching in those details and working as much with it as possible. But notice my hands are very gentle, rubbing all those details in and making crewmate. That good? Could you do it with wire? I would if I had any wire on me, but if you can save the wire material, unless that's a part of the assignment, I think that that would suffice. What do you think, Kid Down Under? Is he the imposter or not? You don't know? Well, this is what I can help you with. It's not the wire and foil guy, but if you do set with wire, there's two ways that you can go about it. What I would do is because, again, since I use mostly just pure foil, whenever I used wire, it was only as more rigid skeleton. So here's what you can do. Say this is, you don't have to make your own wire. I'm just showing you what you want the wire to bend into. Use the wire. Two little pieces like little green wire that you use in gardening. There's a chicken wire where it's more substantive. Here's what you do. Just take a tape measure, measure out two pieces of wire that are going to fit around the same length that you'd want the crewmate to be about how tall. Cross them over and then wrap them around each other. Twist tie them like you're tying around your shoes. Spin them around again and again and again so that you, again, can use the legs and the body and then build everything else around it. And then do, again, what I showed you before. Wrap the two legs, the wire in, wrap around the feet, press in with your thumb, wrap around the head, fold it over to spare time, make a visor, make a backpack, wrap around, put them in place, and pinch in the details. Maybe I'll make this one the imposter. Like that. Put a circle on the top like a face or oh yeah, that'd be easy enough. So, say you're not doing the visor, just take a piece of wire, wrap around it, and use that as the base before you're doing the wraparound. Simple enough. But again, this is what I can provide you as far as the inside. But whatever you guys were doing in the class, that's what I would recommend. And again, if a teacher has any questions for me, feel free to send them. I'd be happy to provide more in-depth tutorials if that is, again, what you guys are discussing. Done that stuff before. Does that help you out? Is it okay to have an OONG among us? I don't know what an OONG is. What is that? I Google searched it and it said that's the mispronunciation of the Avatar Netflix. Is it okay to belong among us? That's entirely up to you, man. It is your crewmate. Let me know if that helps you out. Thank you for the request. It goes on my report. Well, happy to provide further tutorials, but here's what I can do from here, If your teacher is trying to go off the source material, then I'd recommend making it as simple as possible. So if he comes out long, just do it again. I showed you earlier, folding it over, and then that will shorten him up, and then you can work around him that way. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kid Down Under. Any other requests? So we've still got about a half hour before I have to sign off. So let's see. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Technically 8 because I made 2 crewmates, but I'll upload a photo of him being the imposter. That'll be fun. SpongeBob? Sure. One of the fried cook hat and spatula, or do you want him jellyfishing with his net? SpongeBob. That is unnerving. Searched up SpongeBob, and the things that come up were not exactly SpongeBob. All right. SpongeBob. Okay. So I'll just stick to classic, I suppose. Start with his rather impressive leg muscles, as we saw in Muscle Bob Buff Pants. A little bit more foil on his shoes. Funny story. My wife, when we first got married, had never seen SpongeBob, so we went through and just watched the whole series in order, and she loved it. But when we got to like the new stuff that's not funny anymore, She's like, it's been kind of boring. They said, I know. Made it farther past most would be willing to. But it was fun to be able to see the reactions of someone who was a noob to all things nautical and nonsensical. Sean Dempsey was an actual marine biologist. And he was writing the show. He was actually including a lot of scientific facts about animals. And that's special. Work on his tie, because despite his childlike demeanor, he always dresses very professional. Your guys' favorite SpongeBob episode? Mine's Dying for Pie. Big fan of the needlessly chaotic explosions, and especially. Can I see all of your foil sculpture? Yeah, I'll be happy to bring over the ones that we've done during this live stream in between sessions. But yeah, what's your guys' favorite? Oh, these are always the goodies. My dad's all-time favorite is the Shanghai one. They get captured by the Flying Dutchman, and the technical, I guess not technical, the technically second appearance, but the official first appearance, because the Halloween special from the first season got taken down for being too scary, which may have been what they were going for, but oh well. And you guys see the band SpongeBob episode, the one with the Halloween costume. That is a worthy achievement if you were able to find it. I guess it's not that hard. You can just buy the DVDs, but still. Something to brag about. I got the hidden band SpongeBob episode they could show on TV. Too scared. Not too muscular, is he? Except for 3 fingers, except for Sailor Mal, that showed 13 fingers. Let's see here. When I stay engaged, gotta give out on this good show. Only so much can be done. Hope you guys don't mind. As he stands right now, he almost looks like he did in his Halloween costume. Not a hat? That's my brain. Oh. eyes ought to be a little bigger. Kind of reminds me of the robot replica Plankton made of him, too. So using how these very traumatic things rarely carry over into future episodes, with the exception of the first SpongeBob. Which was a fantastic retelling of the Odyssey, by the way. I'm referring to, of course, the fact that Plankton acknowledged all of his prior and failed attempts to steal the Krabby Patty formula. However, I was rather disappointed that they didn't keep on the old muscular Poseidon from the Fry Cook spatula that was pulled from the grease, kind of like the Arthurian myth. Changed the actor and made him insecure about his hairline instead. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, Kid Down Under. Here's your SpongeBob. Real quick. We've got Princess Daisy from the Mario series. We've got Roaring Knight from Deltarune. We've got one of the trolls from Vast Air, Homestuck fan fiction. We've got the Goblin King from Labyrinth. And we've got this necklace called the Prince of Darkness. Think of that, which was the top hat you saw when you came in. Bye. Thank you for leaving those requests. I will have their individual photos uploaded if they haven't been already. I've already done SpongeBob. We will see. We will see. So, got about 15, 20 minutes. We have to log off. So, you guys have any requests in the comments? I'll go out to anime stuff that I had in the backlog. Wouldn't be a live stream if we had Pokemon. I got Gyarados in the offing, but are there any of you here that have a favorite Pokemon one that you would want to see done? Take that for a few more seconds, and while thinking about it, this one is going to be Marcille Donato from Dungeon Meshi, which would translate to Dungeon Delicious. Haven't seen it, but the elf, who ironically enough had characters' voices responded to in various ways. More well known of which, at least in my department, was when she freaked out about not wanting to eat something, I believe, in context, but the German voice actress who did her was able to execute it properly, even more so than the Japanese or English. The other options available, but still. You guys watch Dungeon Meshi? I believe I've done 2 or 3 characters from it: the dwarf and the chimera. And I don't think they ate her because they had later follow-ups, interactions with the character. Generally, consuming someone's flesh puts a damper on the relationship, to quote part of The Princess Bride. Gotta commend the authors and animators making this stuff accessible to us, because all things can be said of Japan. They do know how to write. Although I do pity them regarding the demands. Trying to draw those things not just frame by frame, but even in a professional and technological setting, it is not easy to animate. And the voice actors too. I got 3 friends that are in the voice acting business, and they work their tails off to get this not only as a lucrative business, but especially as an effective one, because they really want to do their jobs well. And compare it to some of the stuff that ends up being put out professionally, and it's not good. I can think of right off the bat 4 anime dubs that I thought were genuinely well executed, if not better than the originals. Most of Soul Eater, obviously, the 4th season kind of petered off. Hetalia added more humor because they were able to do the accents the way the Japanese actors weren't. Black Lagoon was fantastic as far as the English dub is concerned, and then the greatest written anime of all time, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, that obviously goes without saying. Any of you guys have any dubbed anime that you thought were properly executed? And again, I may be prejudiced because my all-time favorite anime got a horrible English dub. And unfortunately, upon a further sequel and renewal of the show, they brought back the old English actors that did a terrible job and didn't do any better. So we're all just left to grieve. Still. On the staff here. Oh. Looking further detail, she's got 2 pigtails and a broad ponytail. Imagine how she maintains that hair. And again, Fantasyland. Maybe you got a spell for it. You guys watch Free Ren? It's kind of an ongoing joke in the show that she's more interested in obscure everyday skills. I'm sure. Canonically, in this show, they had a spell for dealing with laundry, but their hair noted she always had her companion and disciple Burn do that, or Burn do that for her. Is it Fern or Burn? I know all their names are German puns regarding their personalities, which makes Free Ren hilarious. If you know, you know. Still. Dark and strong. And remember what Fern means. You have not 1 but 2 figures of her in my office. It hasn't started as many conversations as I thought it would, but probably for the best. Any anime fans here? Odd interactions that you've had? Or has the mainstreaming of weeb culture made things a little bit more pleasant? Even at conventions, you can find some pretty passionate people on both sides. I think I've only been to 2. None of them were anime specific. I'll tell you stories about that sometime. Those were both tragic. Nonetheless, taking into consideration the very, very vast network I'd imagine that just like with fandom we talked about before, you take all kinds of flavors. Needing that opportunity to draw limits with people. I'm sure none of us have forgotten the infamous My Hero Academia fans requiring people to put up signs for deodorant application. That is a story and a punchline made into one. And that's saying something for someone who goes to the gym like me. I chemically lost my sense of smell as a kid, so I can't tell, but I can always assume. So sometimes that excuse works. Other times people are like, again, you're sweaty. Why do you not know that your sweat smells? Well, there's stress sweat and there's exercise sweat. Exercise sweat doesn't smell as bad. And that's worked once. Granted the point and then said, but just know that it does smell. And then the next time, I said, but we talked about that already. Don't overuse your excuses not to shower. One of the things that you learned here today, as well as the inner workings and details of 19th century hat making material, as well as the ins and outs of those technical terms, which I do appreciate insight into, and the infamous ongoing reality of weebs not washing adequately. I am not of weebs. Hygienic negligence. Okie dokie. Let's work on her dress. Any Pokemon? Or are you guys good with Gyarados? Maybe Mega Gyarados. Done that before, but find the recap. The Pokemon Legends ZA. Sure, that's drawn new attention to Mega Evolutions, although not in the same way. Anyone here looking forward to Pokemon Wind and Waves? The price of Switch games is definitely going to hamper my progress in participating in that a bit, but it will happen eventually. But again, my wife likes to play Mario Kart, so we have the excuse to invest in the Switch. It's for the kids, right? It's designed for the character. It's really friendly, but they've tricked us with that before. In any Dungeon Meshi fans, have any insights into the plot line that would make it worth investing? Got a after school event where just let them watch anime and eat snacks and hang out, as long as it's not that kind of anime. It's like a PG-13 max as far as modern sensibilities are concerned. And parents are usually cool with it because they're watching anime anyway. They know the deal. But the limits must be regarded. If Dungeon Meshi wouldn't fit that bill is what I'm asking. To fan servicing for junior hires, yeah. Well, nonetheless, might be something I could watch on my own. I'm a fan of fan service, but I do appreciate a good story and well-rounded characters. yeah, that'll do. Maybe lengthen her traveling skirt a little bit. All right. So, for those who are aware, how does that look? For those who aren't, same question. Marcille, whichever would adequately describe her. No, we'll deal with the hate mail later then. Very nice. Very nice. All right, let's see here. So we got Daisy, Roy Knight, Troll, necklace. Got the top hat, crewmate, SpongeBob, and Marcille. Why don't we finish? We got 5-10 minutes. Gyarados. We will call it a stream. Unless, of course, anyone else would like to speak their piece and leave a request before we sign off. Going once. Going twice. Going 3 times. Sold to the water flying type that for some reason is not dragon and in the same boat as Charizard, even though he also doesn't get dragon type until evolution. What can you do? Gyarados. I remember reading that in the original designs, but that Gyarados was supposed to be the final stage from Dratini and Dragonair, and that Dragonite was supposed to be what evolved from the Magikarp, but they decided to switch it around either because of power scaling or because of the theme of the fish that travels upriver and when he reaches the top becomes a dragon. That's why they're so rare. Once again, theory, not official lore, but I do think it has merit. Sneaky. So let's multitask here. Work on those little segments. Anyone here competitive Pokemon? You guys seen Mega Dragonite or Mega Dragonite? Mega Gyarados? Mega Dragonite too. I brought it up. Any of those guys kind of entering the competitive scene? I did like Mega Gyarados when it was still in the Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire days. Mostly because I enjoy dark types, especially. Absol's my all-time favorite. But the modern iterations got an entirely different play style, so now it's more about 2-stage attack patterns to dodge and the necessity of staying mobile, getting them out of the experience. So, new competitive scene, at least in that game format, and who's going to be able to know until they announce it to us what the wind and waves mechanics are going to introduce. I do like the fact that you can now see the Pokemon in the games, but other things have been taken away. So, such is the nature of things. He is to support them. The opportunity to just improve, but to recognize that their products are still appreciated from knee high to a grasshopper, as my father always says. It's a euphemism, I believe, for growing up. Maybe reference to Karate Kid too. I don't know. Clarify it later. Oh wait, one more frill on that barnacle. Then again, that level of detail is one that's only appreciated by the one who sees it, which wouldn't counteract the point. I want to make sure that it's right even for things that people don't see themselves. Very large and in charge. Running into him in later stages in the original. Now, like, absolute unit, that one. Bonus request to the person who gets that reference. I believe it's a meme. British accent, always fun. British policies. Never be too sure. The accents change from street corners, from what I hear. They're just trying to keep English as fluid as possible so they don't have to admit that American accents are just their older accent. But not my problem. See a lot of common favorites. I'm sure many call Gyarados their own. The best friends, these are my my wife's favorite. She doesn't play Pokemon. Still, did give her a Pokemon card. We were dating. That had the gym leader that reminded me of her. So she has some association, I suppose. All in good time. So once I finish this, I'll be signing off, but don't let that stop you from leaving requests. And if, by the way, you are listening to this live stream at later dates, comment section is open for any requests, any type. The only limit is, again, the character in of themselves is appropriate for all ages. From something sus, I don't necessarily mind. If they are sus, that is where I will challenge. But again, that's for the sake of accessibility and a friendly environment. Follow on Twitter, Tumblr, DeviantArt, and channels that will still have me. That is also available. Send private messages. Explicit, by the way. It's still noted for private stuff, but if it's just, I'm not comfortable with the character, but it's not that, quote unquote, that, I'd still be one to negotiate if it's borderline. Just let me know. Live to please. Or at least function to. Upper jaw, and we are good. I was amused by the shape of his mouth. It's not necessarily intimidating, but it does have enough of a callback to Magikarp where you remember his roots. All right. Those little rivets, and we are done. All right. Gyarados. Or Gyarados, if you prefer. Cool. Well, that will conclude today's session. Yeah. Oh boy. Princess Daisy. Mario. We have Overreach. Roaring Knight from Deltarune. We have Fast Air Troll. We have the Goblin King from Labyrinth. We have the Heart of Darkness necklace. We have a top hat with the band intending to cover the stage line. We have not one, but two crewmates from Among Us. Which one is the imposter? We don't know. We've got another Spongebob Squarepants. We've got the elf from Dungeon Meshi. And we've got the Pokemon. Always fun. So, thank you all for joining me. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for your engagement, for the opportunity to talk with all of you, and hopefully making this time meaningful. I will look forward to the next opportunity I have to be able to live stream with you all. Until then, see you next time.